Alright, Vail VR is probably one of the most interesting VR shooters today. It's one of the most marketed and praised shooters, despite still not making it big. Every video you see on Vail VR is either getting you to buy in or it's a sponsored post, made by artisan developers focused on the finer details. Finding genuine interaction for the game is far and few in between. It's not necessarily the game's fault, as it's trying to compete in a very saturated genre of VR FPS shooters. You have Population 1 that focuses on the Battle Royale aspect, trying to replicate Fortnite, and it's also free. Onward, that if you played Insurgency Sandstorm, focuses on more milsim and tactics. Contractors, that leans more on becoming Call of Duty in VR. Pavlov, that is more like CSGO. Breachers, that is like Rainbow Six Siege, etc. There are so many great shooters already in VR, and all of these games cater towards casuals and sweats. Usually when you play any FPS on any platform, flat or VR, you'll stick to one game to get good at. This is where Vail comes in. Vail is marketed first as a 5v5 competitive shooter. The attention is esports in hand to attract venture capital and funding, which, let's be honest, isn't the best strategy as monetization is still hard. And you see historic orgs like FaZe, Optic, Liquid, TSM switch to content creation full time. It's not as lucrative as traditional sports that usually have millions of fans buying merch, seats, or have big TV deals. The game's identity is always changing in order to fit the current mode at the given moment. Vail VR isn't new at all, with it coming out in 2021 on Steam as a closed alpha, which I got invited to but I didn't check out, and getting 3 years of in-house development. This game has been out for almost 7 years. The game has gone through so many phases. I've been following the history of the game closely. The brief synopsis of it is that the game first was exclusive to Steam, and the devs at the time said it wouldn't be possible, or they weren't actively working on a Quest version due to choice. They were hitting the gritty on Quest 2 because it was a mobile headset. The idea of Quest not being able to play full-fledged games was still held until now, where you got games at the scope of Asgard's Wrath 2. And at the time, Quest needed content, and let's be honest, the platform to be on and actually make money continues to be MetaQuest. They skipped an opportunity to organically grow its community. Then they rolled out an incredible marketing campaign that got a lot of VR YouTubers like Thrillseeker and other content creators to come out with videos catered to the game to make it look as good as possible. Funny enough, Thrillseeker's video about Vail is privated, as the only way of knowing it existed at one point was through an old Reddit thread. The video basically showcased and detailed its development cycle and showed their ambition. Then you have the Esports event, which is basically an influencer get together with prize pools to get people and pros to pay attention to the game. And anytime the game was talked about, it was always referencing how they were revolutionizing the entire VR shooter genre with the aim to be a competitive shooter, a focus on balancing and the finer details. Then the metaverse era came. Then they flip-flopped to NFTs and social hubs. NFTs in Vail would be implemented as pets that were a way to support the devs further. I don't want to get in a NFT spiel, but when you hear someone talk about how they're doing NFTs differently than everyone else, the more they speak, you can see right through the snake oil. Even John Wick laughed at the idea of digital scarcity.
Because there were over 300,000 people in the queue trying to buy these NFTs for $50. And so like when you think about the concept of digital scarcity and things that are, you know, they can't be copied.
That are easily reproduced.
Well, but they're not the same, right? It's not a fake version of you.
Then ultimately, after 7 years, you come full circle into developing a Quest version for Vail, which is the version I'll be talking about. With that said, it's not to trash the game, but knowing the history gives perspective into how long the devs have been working on the game, and still the game is yet to be a finished project, where VR shooters like Pop 1, Onward, and Pavlov have hit their stride and have their core base of players and new ones returning every day. Vail for the longest has looked like a scam from far away, and I decided to give the game a chance. And the game isn't bad, but it exists in a spot where no one is really asking for another competitive VR shooter. So first, let me start off with what I like about the game. Trying out Vail, the best things about the game are gunplay mechanics and the audio on the guns and gadgets. The guns, if you played Onward, feel very similar, almost spot on to me. That's a plus. Onward is my favorite VR shooter out of the bunch. The guns don't feel floaty or super heavy, restricting player mobility, and they're flush. There is also a good selection of weapons, from snipers, rifles, SMGs to pistols. Shooting weapons and hearing them discharge adds depth. You can switch between semi and fully automatic, recoil control is best when you're idle and sways massively when you're moving around. Another thing is in-game progression that replicates something like Call of Duty, whereas when you level up, you unlock new weapons, prestige, get camos for getting headshots with certain weapons, finishing games and winning them gives you more XP, etc. Progression is big for a lot of people to feel as you're moving further along in the game. When you load up the game, you're in a hub area that acts like your own social hub to customize weapons, feel out different weapons in the shooting range, and practice and improve your aim. It is reminiscent of Valorant. Vail also tracks your in-game stats for you to compare with global, weekly, and daily leaderboards. It has a skill gap to learn the weapons. If you play this game, turn on virtual stock option 1, as that will immediately improve your playstyle instead of using freeform aiming. The game also is very quick in getting you in matches with people actively playing the game and getting you into the next match. The game is flush with players, but those that do play regardless of a 10 or 160 ping gets you matched together. You're in and out of matches quickly. For me, that's when the good ends. Then we start to get into the really rough parts of the game. First off, on the Quest version, you need to be connected online when you play. So if or when the game ever goes, the whole ship comes crumbling down. The game follows the identity of a live service game, removing and fixing things on the go, as I'm pretty sure that's how the game got released on the official Quest storefront, following the likes of Ghost of Tabor. Let's talk about the gameplay. The gameplay is solid, but it really struggles in certain instances. At times, it feels like a lesser version of Contractors. Why get this game when there are 6+ VR shooters better than Vail? I keep telling myself the same question while playing. The game is about delivering unparalleled combat, but it's not as groundbreaking as it seems, but not bad either. But then again, I'll keep circling back when there are better options. The combat in the game is very janky and sometimes unresponsive, and you'll generally encounter that with any multiplayer VR shooter. For a game that prioritizes esports and competitive play, that is still yet to be seen in the 1.0 version, as you match up with players with pings in the hundreds, enemy character models stuttering because of ping or snap turn options, random performance hiccups and drags, shoddy netcode, wall exploits, and no real balancing on the matchmaking or rank mode at all. My first game, I was matched with players like me. It was the first time playing, and on the other side you had players that were higher levels, and it made for an unfun experience. And I only won one round, as I was lucky enough that shooting someone's toes counted as a headshot. What counts and what doesn't count as a body shot or headshot sometimes feel random. The hitbox on players isn't always consistent. With netcode in certain matches, some players seem to have the advantage of getting to see you first, while others struggle. Multiplayer games have always struggled with this aspect, but it works in the game's favor to mitigate as much of that as possible. The game is also crossplay, which benefits PCVR users and keeps the game alive. But when you market a game trying to emphasize that balancing is one of the most important virtues, PCVR and Quest are not on par at all. And if you're on PC, you're at an obvious advantage. It's like playing Fortnite on your phone against people on PC. Then you got maps, and oh boy, they're just sort of lifeless and all over the place. Every map basically revolves around the center being the center of attention, outskirts of the map, 2 high points, and a tunnel area. Playing every map, none of them made me think, oh great, this map again. After 7 years, to just have this selection of maps is really underwhelming. The maps are extremely small, and spawns are almost as bad, as sometimes you will frag out and someone you just eliminated will spawn right behind you. The maps generally feel uninspired, spawns are static, and experienced players can resort to spawn killing newer players like me. Then the game modes in the map feel like an afterthought. There are 9 modes. Some of the main ones are search and destroy, capture the flag, that is called capture the orb in Vail, free for all, etc. None of them, except for search and destroy, fit the style of the maps. Then graphically, the game isn't anything stellar. The game is 13 gigabytes, but in large part probably due to the uncompressed audio and weapon models, as textures in the game very much look like a Quest game. Moving or standing still has significant amount of aliasing, and being developed in Quest 2, there isn't a Quest 3 upgrade for this game yet. This game follows an aesthetic that is similar to those of a modern Glass House or a modern title like Halo. Minimalistic design, but with its color palette looks kind of dead. Objects just placed randomly in maps. On both headsets, the game runs at 72 Hz, which is basically the the minimum when making an FPS game in VR. Although the graphics are really toned down, the performance isn't any better. Performance tends to be all over the place as this game is a port of an existing PCVR title. You often see games that have crossplay with Steam suffer as that isn't originally the game's direction. And I also had constant stutters on both headsets, and the game has problems with loading in shaders for every map. Even after initializing, it still has hiccups in areas you haven't gone into. The game will also randomly stutter for the entire lobby and seconds later return to normal. Vail looks better than most games and is passable. If you have Quest Games Optimizer, people in lobbies did mention being able to push 90Hz and a higher resolution. By default, the game runs at a higher resolution and looks significantly better in hand due to the pancake lenses. On Quest 2, everything looks blurry, like Vaseline rubbed on everything. Shimmering edges, jaggies, and flickering are still prominent even on Quest 3, as that version isn't upgraded. To end the video with a general question, is Vail VR worth it? Paying $30 for? No, as I said, there are already shooters that are priced in a similar price tag or free that are better than this game. The gameplay isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. At times, Vail is fun, and if you're someone that likes the Call of Duty Battle Pass progression style, the leveling system and the gameplay loop can be exciting at times. There are some people out there that this game will cater towards to, and you'll be able to build a community around it. And I'm mostly only playing this game because I got this channel and I like creating these VR reviews. I still enjoy the hours I was able to put in the game. If further attention goes into matchmaking, balancing, better maps, better netcode, improved graphics, and maybe even a 90Hz toggle on Quest 3, all these added features will add to the game's value. But I kinda lean on it being a little bit too late for that. Games similar to Vail are already out there, like Breachers or Contractors. Games eventually hit their peak and players move on to different games or stick to playing one shooter to get good at. It's sort of worrying that potentially with the millions of dollars they were able to raise and in the 7 years of development, starting off as a Steam PCVR exclusive, they've come full circle into creating a Quest port of Vail. And I own practically every shooter. The latter, when looking for a VR FPS to play, would be Onward at the top and the rest of them follow. I would compare it to, let's say my favorite food is tacos and I'm at a restaurant. They serve both burritos and tacos, both great foods, and I would pick tacos every time. Doesn't mean I hate burritos, I just rather pick something that is obviously better to me. I think Vail might have a better chance in PSVR than Quest due to them having a lesser catalog when it comes to shooters in VR. Hopefully with the roadmap and planned features, this game picks up pace on Quest, as it kind of failed at gaining significant traction on PCVR. Any game with updates can be improved upon, but I just kind of see this game dwindling over time as nothing makes it feel like the next best shooter. And yeah, that's all. If you liked the video, comment, leave a like, subscribe for more, and yeah, until the next video, see ya.